Alright, this screencast is to hopefully get those of you working on track 1 on the second assignment started with both the base plan and details, inserting some images so that you have the reference files to work with for underlays. First thing I have open here is drawing 1, and I've given you guys the base file to work from, so I'm going to go to wherever I have that base DWG file saved, and I'm going to go ahead and open that file. So once this opens up, you're most likely going to get this prompt of update the location of reference files or ignore unresolved references. What this is referring to is two things. The image file that was originally on the drawing that was for the logo, and additionally the base bitmap image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on update the location of referenced files. Once this by clicking on this, it should bring up the XREF palette, at which point you can see the logo is listed here and the assignment 1 is listed here. I'm going to highlight both. I'm going to right click and I'm just going to detach these two. Additionally, what I can do is I can attach assignment 1-1. You'll notice in my instance, since the assignment 1 bitmap is in the same exact folder as the base file that I've opened, it's found the file. If it still doesn't find the file, I'd be able to click in this found at path, click in the ... and then you can browse to wherever it is. So in my case, assignment 1, open, and it's now showing the full path. So close out of that once that's resolved. You have one default layout which you can use to build from. However, there are some details of what I'm expecting on your layout in the description sheet. So if I click into model space, you have the basic outline walls given to you just for some reference, but now we're going to go through actually inserting that image and making sure that it's scaled properly so that you can start working, and any dimensions that may be missing, you have at least an image to refer to for any pieces to fill in the blanks. So to do that, I'm going to go to insert in the ribbon, select attach. Notice it says I'm defaulting to all image files, so we need to make sure that that's the case. If you have something else selected, make sure you switch it back to all image files. I'm going to browse to my location of my files. And I have my assignment 1. I'm going to open the file. I'd like to keep this as a relative path. If it doesn't let you set it as a relative path, it basically means that you haven't saved the drawing that you have open. Scale, I'm not going to be concerned about this right now because I don't know exactly how much I have to scale it up. And insertion point, I'm just going to pick a relative location on the screen that's somewhere near this base drawing that I already have. So I'm going to click OK. I'm asking me for an insertion point, so I'm going to go ahead and click somewhere approximately, and then I'm just going to drag my cursor, I'm not clicking at all here, just to an approximate size. You can see the frame of the image that's close to where I need it to be, specific to the walls of the adjacent buildings to the plaza that we're drawing. So you'll see that the bitmap comes up, zoom in, all the same information's here as your printed sheet. One of the things that's important to note with any image file is it's completely opaque by default, so any information that's behind it is going to be hidden. What I need to do is highlight the image, and you can tell that this is highlighted because your image ribbon is selected, and I can right click and go to draw order and send to back, and that brings these walls out in the front. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the image. Remember, I always have to select it on the frame to make an image modification, and I want to locate this corner down to this point in the drawing because this part of the image is exactly this location on the referred lines that I've given you. So I'm going to zoom in and as best as possible select the base point, and then I'm going to use my endpoint snap it to the endpoint, and you'll notice now it's at least placed correctly, but you'll also notice that we need to scale it up in order to get it to fit this space. In an ideal sense, you're going to find the furthest most distance for your scaling. Reason being is the further away you are, the more minor margin for error that you're given. If you can imagine, if I scale based on this corner to this, if I'm off by an inch, is going to be a lot less of a change than if I'm from this corner to this corner off by an inch. It's a much higher percentage to be off. So I'm going to go into my scale command, select the image, again selecting it on the edge or the frame. Base point is going to be that point that I just located. Now this point, I don't know how many times I need to scale it up, what the exact factor is, so I have to scale by reference. So I'm going to hit R for reference. The length that I know, I'm going to use this bottom line. This is just makes it a little bit more simplified. So I right now, reference length, I'm going to snap at my base point. I'm going to come across to the opposite corner, and I'm going to go ahead and click again to specify the second point, which is now defined the length that I currently have, and I bring my cursor over to specify what length that should now be. And when I click again, you'll notice everything should be pretty close to lining up. You'll notice that there's some adjustments at the top. I'm not going to be concerned about that. If there's some minor differences in dimensions in here, that's perfectly fine. Don't spend a ton of time. This bottom line where there's a bunch of dimensions given to you is more important than any minor differences on the offsets up here. So last thing that I would recommend doing is, and if you haven't done this already, we're going to set a layer for the base to be on so that we can freeze that layer later on and the image will go away with it. It gives us the advantage of keeping the image here for reference as we're adding and taking things away. Maybe we realize something we missed later on, but then when you go to print, you can just turn that layer off and that won't print with the file. So I'm going to open my layer manager. I'm going to create a new layer and call it image. I'm just going to set it as white, and since this is a bitmap, this will change the line work of the image itself. And again, I can turn this off later, but I'm just going to go ahead and set it not to print so that I don't have to worry about accidentally forgetting to turn it off. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to select the image, back to my home tab, and I can change the layer back to that on the ribbon, or if you have your properties box open, I can also change it right here. Okay, so now if I go back to my layers just to demonstrate, select my image layer and I freeze it, say OK, you'll notice that's now off, and if I undo, it comes back. Okay, so that's hopefully going to get you started on the base file. Feel free to email me at any point if you have any questions, but that should give you a jumping off point. Obviously you'll make layers that correspond to some of the drawn objects, the walls, steps, paving, planting, logical layers that you would use. Okay, that's it.